guys, it's Dom and welcome back to my channel. So if you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, travel content, and miscellaneous collection content, and today's video is going to be bookish content because we're going to be discussing a book, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I finished this book a while ago, so this review / discussion was a long time coming. It's going to be very, very messy, fair warning, because I have a lot of thoughts. I covered some of them in my wrap-up, but not even the half of it, so there's a lot. So if you're new to what I've been doing, I've been rereading the Hunger Games trilogy so I could prepare for this book. I have vlogged all 3 books, and I'll link those up above and down below, because after this video finally goes up, I'm going to watch the movies and discuss it. It's going to be like a Hunger Games series on this channel, and then I'm moving on to another series, but that's for another video. And that's why I'm here. It's just been a long time coming because I finished this book like mid-July. I got some thoughts. And then before I go ahead, I'm going to do like the non-spoilery stuff in the beginning, but later in this video and the majority of this video will be spoilers. So I'll wave goodbye and stuff when the non-spoiler stuff is done, but I will be talking about the non-spoiler parts first. Let's talk about what this book is about. This very interesting book is in the point of view of Coriolanus Snow, who is the main antagonist of the original trilogy. I thought this book was going to take place when he was kind of like a young adult. I mean, technically it does, but like 20s, 30s. This book takes place when Coriolanus, who I will be referring to as, because he is referred to in this book as Coriolanus, not Snow. Coriolanus was 18. He is in his last year of high school at the academy in the capital, and because it's only the 10th Hunger Games, they're not really into the swing of things yet, so there are no mentors. So it's the first year where there are mentors, but it's not past tributes. It's Coriolanus and his fellow students. They are assigned a certain tribute. He is assigned the District 12 girl, which is the worst of the worst, typically, and he was not looking forward to it. Shit happens. Suddenly he is. And he creates a special bond with said girl. And I'm going to leave it at that for the synopsis. It is essentially a villain's origin story. Now, when Suzanne Collins announced it was going to be in Snow's point of view, I remember the controversy. People were pissed off. They don't want to read in the villain's point of view. They thought she would be glamorizing him, which before, spoiler for my own video, she does not. It was just controversial. Like, people had opinions without actually reading the fucking book. As per usual, I've noticed in BookTube. I was excited. I love villain origin stories, and you know who you have to thank for that? Thank Azula and then Light from Death Note. Ever since I saw Azula's story in Avatar: The Last Airbender, I've been obsessed with villain origin stories. Because of how young I was when I first watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, I was about like, it was right before middle school, and when I caught a few episodes, when I caught a few episodes, and then I finished the series when I was like 7th grade, I want to say. And so because of how young I was, you know how like kids shows, they have a very, very concrete definition of good versus evil. Avatar: The Last Airbender wasn't a black and white show. It was a very gray area. I had never in my life had a villain's actions explained to me until Azula. That just blew my mind when I was a kid, because I do not excuse her actions by any means, but because I was so used to villains just being bad, and they were bad because they were bad, not they were evil because, you know, their mom didn't love them or their dad was a piece of shit. It was the first time a villain story was explained to me, and I thought that was just, I don't want to say the coolest thing, but I thought that was bizarre. I've never had bad actions explained to me, and then I wanted to see that again. Like, I wanted to see a villain whose actions were explained to you but were not excused by any means. And then I watched Death Note when I was 14, and I got what I wanted. Like, I got a villain's actions explained to me without excusing them, and I've just been looking for more stories like that. So I am a sucker for villain origin stories, and the main reason is because I have such a hard time fathoming that people can do these terrible, terrible things. So it's like, why? Like, why do you do those things? I want to know why. I love when people's actions are explained, even like the littlest actions. Like, why? Like, for me, why do I have a fear of big humanoid statues? I can tell you why I have a fear of big humanoid statues. Long-winded explanation why I love villain origin stories and why I was looking forward to this. So many people were dreading it, but I was really looking forward to it. I got worried when I saw the negative reviews, a lot of negative reviews, but I avoided them like the plague. I saw the star rating and just avoided the reviews because I was scared they would taint my reading experience, and I didn't want that to happen. So I went into it. And in the end, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because when I first closed the book, I was angry. I didn't know why I was angry. Is it because Suzanne Collins didn't fit my headcanon? Why? Why was I angry? I cannot tell you why I was angry. Because after thinking about it for a while, I was no longer angry. My overactive imagination went crazy with theories, which I will get to, but my overactive imagination's still going crazy, and I want more. I don't think she has more in the process, but I want more. So in the end, I didn't hate the book, I didn't dislike it, but I didn't think it was great, and I didn't like it. So usually that's an average of 3 out of 5 stars for me. It makes sense to me. I enjoyed my reading experience. I enjoyed reading part 1 and part 2. Part 3 was where it fucking dragged, and I was like, I don't like this. Let's move on and talk more about it. So I want to bring up Suzanne Collins's I want to bring up her attention to detail for this book because, like other readers on BookTube, I don't understand when authors they finish a series that's been finished for years. In the case of The Hunger Games, it's been finished for almost a decade now, and then suddenly they just have a new book going back to that finished series. I don't get it, and I know a lot of authors were like, oh, I've always had this planned, and then most of BookTube is like, did you really? Were you really planning on it? I don't know what Suzanne Collins said about this. I don't know if she had it always planned or not, but if she were to tell me she did, like she always did have it planned, honestly, I'd believe her. I thought the information in this book was very, very consistent with the original trilogy, just like the small hints in the original trilogy. Whether or not they were intended to be hints for this, you could perceive them as hints because there's just things I noticed in this book that I remember from the original trilogy. For example, this is kind of a spoiler, but I think given what this book is about, we can kind of assume we do get information on the first winner of District 12 because in the original trilogy, Katniss said there's only 2 winners. There have only been 2 winning tributes. Only one's alive, meaning Haymitch, and that's it. She never talks about the original one. Information about the original or the first winner is gone, and we get that explained in this book, and it worked so well that for a while I thought she did always have it planned. Honestly, we love consistency. I also want to talk about the characters, the first being Coriolanus, who is the protagonist of this book. He is a lot younger than I thought he would be. Again, I thought he would be in his 20s, 30s, but no, we see him as a young teenager. And his characterization for a villain origin story is great. It's so well written that I hate him, if that makes sense. So, in the beginning, before his turning point in part 3, he's not like a villain yet, but he's still so incredibly vain. He is so full of himself. He cannot relate to other people for the life of him. There were times in this book where I thought he was unbearably unlikable. But then I remember that's the point. You're not supposed to like him. And I was looking for a word that would sum up my feelings about how like he's incredibly vain, but like he's supposed to be vain, and it's just so well written that you hate him. And then I couldn't figure it out. But then I was watching Amanda's video from the Naughty Librarian. I was watching her recent wrap-up where she read this book, and she knew the word. It was sociopathic. Coriolanus is a well-written sociopath, so you're not supposed to like him at all. Which begs the question, why are we reading a book in a character's point of view that you don't like? But again, I like reading stuff like that. Like, I could hate the main character, but I still want to know why he or she does what he does. So I'm gonna read it. So in my case, because I know in Amanda's case, she was like conflicted about it. She's like, why am I reading a book about a main character I don't like? I could hate the character. I could think this character belongs in the 9th circle of hell, and I will still read their story if I can get an explanation for why they act the way they do. I absolutely adore Lucy Gray as a character. She is the District 12 girl. She's very quirky. She loves to sing. We're introduced to a new group of people called the Covey, which is what she's a part of. Before the Dark Days, they were not a part of a district, but after the Dark Days, they were kind of just shoved in with District 12. She's happy when she needs to be, but she also lets herself feel emotional, if that makes sense. And I just love the songs included in this book. 3 of them are real. One of them is by Burl Ives, but it's called Down in the Valley, I think. Oh My Darling Clementine, which I had no idea how dark those lyrics are until this book. Then there's the Ballad of Lucy Gray, which is a real ballad, but Suzanne Collins she changed some of the lines to make it align with Lucy's story more, which I will get to in the spoiler part of this video. And I love it. I love that we actually got to see the music, because often when we see books, they're like, oh yeah, the character sings, but we see no lyrics. We actually get to see that, and I loved it. So part 3 of this book took a turn I was not expecting. This is the part, and like, I did not like part 3, and again, I don't know if it's because it was unneeded, or if it was because Suzanne Collins didn't follow where my headcanon was leading to. In my headcanon, once part 2 finished, we were going to find out more of the aftermath of the 10th Hunger Games, and I thought we were going to watch Coriolanus like develop the things we see in the original trilogy, but we don't see that. We see him going in a different direction. So like, is it because my headcanon wasn't followed, which would not be Suzanne Collins' fault? That's like my own fault for being attached to something I made up? Or was it because it was not well written? I don't know. Either way, it dragged. Like, okay, the climax in part 2 was so anticlimactic, and then part 3 just dragged until that like last chapter, and then the epilogue. I didn't want to read anymore, and I'm like, this is so sad, because honestly, part 1 and part 2 were a 4 out of 5 star read. I think part 3 is really what dragged it down to 3. I liked getting more information about the Hunger Games, especially the origin of it. We actually do get to meet the guy who created them and how he's actually feeling terrible about it. Because the thing is, for the 10th Hunger Games, because it's so close to the end of the Dark Days, we see the Capitol still in mourning over what happened during those years. We actually get to find out what happened to Coriolanus as a kid during those years and how he's still traumatized. So during the 10th Hunger Games, it's not popular. People from both the districts and the Capitol are still too traumatized, so it's not required viewing. It's not this big game show that we see in the original trilogy. People actually feel bad that kids are dying, and I thought that was just a great way to differentiate itself from the original trilogy, because that was one of my worries going into this book when I read that we're actually seeing one of the games. I was worried we were just going to get like a repeat of the first Hunger Games book, but I thought by showing us the development and making it so different was a great way to make it its own thing and not for us to feel like we're just rereading something we already read. So although I liked learning more about the games in their early days, part of me was also wondering, because again, like, it begs the question, like, who is this book for if we're reading a book in the character's point of view that we don't like? In a way, as much as I did enjoy reading this book at the end of the day, I could have done my whole life without it. And if she wanted to teach us more about the games, part of me wonders why Suzanne Collins just didn't write a guidebook. Because you know how like Twilight has a guide, it has the illustrated guide, Percy Jackson came out with a guide, Harry Potter has a guide, I'm sure more YA books have guidebooks. So it's like, why didn't you just write a guide about the Hunger Games rather than this book form? So yeah, that's it for the non-spoilery part. We're going to move on to the spoilers, because there's just so much I want to talk about that actually happened in the book. But our spoilers, they're not mentioned in the synopsis or anything. So if you enjoyed this video, what you saw so far, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe, comment, the whole jargon. I'll see you guys later. Ciao. For those of you who are staying, let's get discussing. Fair warning, this is the part of the video that's going to be really, really messy, because I just did not know how to talk about these things cohesively. I made bullet points on Goodreads on my phone. I'm just going to go in the order that I wrote those bullet points in. I tried to make them cohesive on Goodreads. Didn't really happen. Let's just jump into it and share your thoughts down below. First of all, we get to meet Tigress again, so thank God I read the original trilogy, because I forgot Tigress existed. For those of you who are new, I went into the original trilogy remembering Hunger Games and Catching Fire the most. I remembered almost nothing from Mockingjay, and Tigress is one of those things I just did not remember until we were introduced to her again. So reading this, I was shocked to see that Tigress is President Snow's cousin, because now I have more questions. This was before she ever became a stylist, because during the 10th Hunger Games there are no stylists. I'm kind of upset now that we're reintroduced to her. I'm kind of upset we don't see her path in life as well, because she mentions in Mockingjay that she was a stylist until Coriolanus didn't think she was good enough anymore. So I want to see how the stylist, how the prep teams, how the training center all came about, and I want to see what made Coriolanus decide his cousin was a piece of garbage, how she felt about it. I wanted to see more of that, so I feel very empty in Tigress's regard. Even though the story's not in her point of view, I still now want to see more of it. But also, I love her. I love young Tigress. Holds a special place in my heart because she actually gave a fuck about the kids. Like, she cared. And then speaking of the training center, was Coriolanus' apartment the training center? Or, like, going to be the training center? Because the way it was described, I was like, okay, like, you're on the 12th floor. There's 12 floors. Your grandma's garden is on the roof that we all know of from Peeta and Katniss' story. So, like, so that's my fan theory. I don't know if it was confirmed. I don't know if it's a popular one, but that's my minor fan theory. Something I'm mad about part 3. We don't get to see more of Coriolanus' classmates. I loved his classmates. What the hell are their names? I don't even remember their names anymore. Hold on. I loved Clemencia. I love Lysistrata. I love Sejanus, who we do get to see more of, but still. Like, I thought what happened to Clemencia with the snakes blew my mind, but still. But, like, I want to see more of them, so maybe that's why I'm kind of salty about part 3. Like I said in the beginning of this video, Coriolanus and the District 12 girl were going to form a bond, right? It ended up being a romantic bond, and I have to be honest, I knew the point of it. I knew what Suzanne Collins was doing. The symbolism wasn't lost on me, but I still didn't see the romantic chemistry, and I don't know if it was because Coriolanus' like sociopathic tendencies just stood out to me too much, or if I just figured what the outcome was going to be. And I caught myself wondering a few times if they were going to, like, get together. Because they mentioned in Mockingjay that President Snow has a granddaughter, so it's like, who married him? Meaning, and he had to have kids if he has a granddaughter. So, like, my fan theory for a while was that he ended up marrying Lucy Gray, and then, like, shit happened to her to make her turn her back on the districts. Obviously, by the end of the book, that is not the case. But even with that theory in mind, I didn't see the romantic chemistry. If anything, they came off as platonic. So the next bullet point was what I did enjoy about part 3. Again, Coriolanus is in the Peacekeepers. It's slow, it drags, but there's so many nods to the original trilogy. At one point, Lucy Gray sings Deep in the Meadow to her cousin Maud Ivory. But she brings up these roots, and she refers to them as, like, potato roots. Like, she says that's what some people call them. But she prefers to call them Katniss. The Covey goes to the lake. They're the only ones who know about said lake. In the original trilogy, Katniss and her father are the only ones who know about the lake. So that was kind of cool to see. And we get an explanation for the hanging tree and what happened. Okay, so the next messy bullet point was Snow's mental breakdown at the end of the book, because literally he's on his way with Lucy Gray to run away. And then Lucy Gray, she gets uneasy when she finds out that Coriolanus killed 3 people, and she runs away. Coriolanus has this mental breakdown that came so fast, and I don't know, it read as really random to me, and I don't know if it was truly random or there was just subtle foreshadowing that I missed while reading the book. He had a lot of existential crises throughout the book, so I guess that could be attributed to foreshadowing. But even then, it still read as very fast, and I had to reread it a few times because of how confused I got. And he just went from being in love to hating Lucy Gray within a paragraph, and I was like, what's going on? Literally tried to kill her, which they left open, and I was like, still pisses me off, but, like, what happened there? What happened? Do you guys think it was fast, like, random, or do you think it was well done? So, like I said, there's the Ballad of Lucy Gray, who Lucy Gray herself was named after, like, they discussed that in the book, and it tells the story of a little girl who left her home. She has a very ambiguous end to her story arc. People don't know if she died or if she stayed alive. The moment I read it, I was like, this is going to be foreshadowing. It's going to foreshadow Lucy Gray's path to this book, and it did. Like I said, Coriolanus tried to kill her. At one point, we can hear her singing. Like, it's not in his head. Like, it's obvious that she's singing. He shoots the gun. The singing stops, but he can't find the body. Like, he went towards where the singing was, can't find her. And then in the epilogue, you find out that she has disappeared, and the questions to her disappearance are unknown. So it's the same story arc as we see in the ballad, and it still left me incredibly unsatisfied. And it's supposed to, because if you think about it, in the original trilogy, Katniss says no one knows what happened to the original tribute. For consistency, it makes sense that Suzanne Collins left it ambiguous, because, and you see later that because of what happened in the 10th Hunger Games, how Coriolanus cheated to get Lucy Gray to win, they did everything they could to erase the evidence. Like, all video footage of the 10th Hunger Games is gone. People don't remember Lucy Gray's name. So it works, but this is also where my overactive imagination comes in, because did she die? Did she escape to District 13? Because that's what they were going to do. They were running away, and it was kind of implied that they were going in the direction of District 13. Does she go back to District 12 undercover? There is evidence for all three theories. Which one is it? It's never going to be answered, but I still want answers. So in the epilogue, you get to see more of Coriolanus fix the game, so he is now a game maker, and he's the one who suggested the Victor's Village, and you could see him in the process of suggesting different things to be the Hunger Games that we know of today, which I kind of wished was what this book was about, because when I went into it, that's what I thought, and that's partially what I thought about Part 3 was going to be about, just the making of all this. And I really wish it was expanded upon and not just shoved in the last 7 pages, but it's too late now, I guess. But we get to see him do some of the things mentioned in Mockingjay, because in Mockingjay, Finnick Odair is sharing secrets about Coriolanus, and we get to see that. One of those secrets was that he poisons people so he can get his way. He's poisoning a character, and it's kind of chilling because he's just so convinced that no one can stop him, and the last line of the book is "Snow lands on top." And it's chilling because you see the confidence of the sociopathic person, knowing that in the original trilogy he's going to be brought down. Which leads me to one of my favorite lines that I kind of forgot about until I was reviewing this to share. But he's talking about Lucy Gray, and Lucy Gray loved Mockingjays. For context, Coriolanus hated them. He thought they should be wiped out because they freaked him out with the repetition. But one of the lines is, she could fly around District 12 all she liked, but she and her Mockingjays could never harm him again. And I think of this line as a nod to what happens in the original trilogy, because Katniss could do whatever she wants in District 12, and he's convinced she can't do anything because she's just a 17-year-old girl, but in the end it's the Mockingjay that brought Coriolanus down. Alright, so now we're just getting to like fan theory territory. If you have fan theories, share them down below. I love reading fan theories. It's all I do. So one of my fan theory, not like fan theories, but like one thing I found interesting was the part where Coriolanus and Lucy Gray are about to run away. They're at the lake, and it's when Coriolanus admits that he's killed 3 people, and Lucy Gray gets uncomfortable, and I just know right then and there that's when she realized she fell in love with the wrong guy, saw the red flags, and pieced the fuck out. She's like, I don't want to be number 4, and to this day we don't fucking know if she's number 4. But I find it interesting that in The Hanging Tree, one of the lyrics is where they strung up a man who say they murdered 3. That man, the subject, you do see him kill 3 people, but I also thought it was foreshadowing to what Coriolanus does, because he kills 3 people. So not including what we see in the epilogue. Before the epilogue, he kills 3 people. So I'm gonna take that as foreshadowing. The next bullet point is my fan theory about who Katniss is related to. I 100% believe she's related to the Covey because of the small things, because of what they're singing, because of the lake. One of which is The Hanging Tree. Katniss has said that it was basically only her and her father, like her father, and Prim who knew that song. So how do you know a song that Lucy Gray wrote? Some people think Lucy Gray is Katniss's grandmother, but I'm pushing for Maud Ivory, Lucy Gray's cousin, because Maud Ivory was said to remember every song she heard. She heard The Hanging Tree, passed it down to Katniss's father, who passed it down to Katniss. And again, the lake, like only Katniss and her father knew about the lake before she introduced Gale to it. Only the Covey knew about the lake. Also, because Katniss and her father were known to be singers, you know, they were known to make even the Mockingjays quiet, I believe they got their singing from Maud Ivory / the Covey in general, because, you know, they're all singers, so, you know, like genetics, it gets passed down. The only reason I think, because I know some people do theorize that Lucy Gray is the grandmother, so like earlier when I said, I asked the question, did Lucy Gray come back to District 12 and disguise herself? Some people believe she's the grandmother of Katniss, and that's why that theory exists, because they believe that's what she had to do to keep herself safe. Like, I feel like it doesn't work, because Lucy Gray's ending is just too ambiguous for that, and just knowing Katniss's character, I feel like she'd know if the first Victor was related to her. Assuming my Maud Ivory theory is correct, like, yeah, she's technically related to the first Victor because Lucy Gray is Maud Ivory's cousin, but I feel like she'd know if she was directly related. Is any of this, like, proven? No. Is this just Easter eggs? Maybe. Like, am I overthinking this? Maybe. But is my overactive imagination going full swing with this? 100%, and I hope it's true, because I think that would be cool. in the end, it could just be simple nods. Maybe, what's her face? Maybe Suzanne Collins wasn't thinking that deep into it, but I refuse to believe that. I like to think she had this all planned out, and we unknowingly read the story of a distant relative of Katniss. So that's the end of my Goodreads rant. I do want to say Sejanus deserved better. I felt so bad for him. I cried at the end of his arc. I was not okay. Coriolanus is a shit friend. At least he was honest with himself that he was never friends with Sejanus, but at least he should have been honest with Sejanus. He should have been honest with Sejanus' family, because in the end, the family still thinks that Coriolanus likes Sejanus, but what can you do? He's a villain, he's an asshole, you can't expect more from him, I guess. That's all I can really say about this book. I want to say more, but again, my thoughts on this book are just so messy. In a way, I could see why so many people just didn't like this book, why they thought it was unneeded. At the end of the day, do I think it was unneeded? In a sense, yes. Like, although I did enjoy it, but at the same time, I did not need this. I could have lived my whole life without it. Again, if she really wanted to tell us about the past Hunger Games, could have came out with a guide. But at the same time, I love villain origin stories. So yeah, I liked seeing the nods to the original trilogy. I liked learning why Coriolanus / President Snow does the things he does. But it left me feeling messy. In the end, I would actually still recommend this just because I feel like this book is so controversial. I want people to read it. One of my toxic traits is that as soon as a book becomes controversial, my brain feels the need to read it. Like, I was so excited to read this because of how controversial people were making this book out to be. And I'm glad I read it because now I have an opinion and I can share it with you guys. To sum up how I feel, if you truly want to know how you feel about this book, no review is going to help that. No video review discussion that something like I'm doing right now is going to help that. If you truly want to know how you feel, you have to read it for yourself. So I think I'm going to end it there. Now that I finally made this video, I can go ahead and watch the movies. I'm so excited for that. I don't know how I'm going to be filming them because this camera stops filming after the 12-minute mark. So I don't know if I'm going to film with this camera or like my computer's camera. But we'll get there. We'll get there when we get there. It's going to be a great time. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you guys are looking forward to it. If you made it this far in the video, give it a big like, thumbs up. Like, thumbs up is the same thing. I don't know why I keep doing that. But give it a big thumbs up, comment down below. Give me your fan theories. Do you agree that Katniss is related to the Covey? Therefore, if you do agree that she's related to the Covey, do you think it's Maud Ivory she's related to, or directly related to, or is it Lucy Gray? What do you think happened to Lucy Gray? I like to believe she survived. And I'm going to peace out because it's late at night. Not really, it's 12:30. Usually I go to bed at 4 in the morning. This is the earliest I've ever filmed a video. I'm wide awake for that. So without further ado, I'm just going to peace out and thank you guys for watching. Ciao a tutti.